Hey there, and welcome to the Locker Room. Coach Giggs here, and I have a very special visitor here with me and guest, Rick Altig. In a continuing series of messages, as you know, that we've been delivering, honoring B. Rappaport, his memory, his legacy. I've asked Rick to be with me here in the Locker Room to share with all of you what he learned and what he would want to share with all of you out there that he learned from B. Rappaport. Rick, good to have you here.
Thank you,
Good to
Eric.
have you. Love it. Good to have you. Well, Rick, you know, you spent, 30 years knowing Mr. Rappaport. So what is it about him that is very special that you feel you've learned and that you've been able to pass on?
Well, you know, Mr. Rappaport, his favorite quote was, "In order to give light to others, you must first set fire to yourself." And Mr. Rappaport was on fire his whole life. And I remember the first time I met him, Eric, he was 65 years old. And I thought, this was 30 years ago, so a 65-year-old
Right.
person was old.
I thought about that.
And I
right?
thought, you know, he's going to come in a wheelchair. They're going to kind of push this guy in because he'd actually had 2 heart attacks. And he came in with such enthusiasm. And you know the word enthusiasm means God within. And you could see God within Rappaport. He just like came blasting through the door, grabbed me and hugged me. And you know what? I knew within that instant this was somebody extraordinary that not only wanted to give light to others, but wanted to give life to others. And that's what you could really feel from him all the way till the very end of his life. He was just constantly giving life. And, you know, I remember Mr. Rappaport said to me, he said, "Rick, I wake up every morning with a full gas tank, that God puts this gas tank in me. And throughout the day, my job is to use every bit of that gas, because if I go to bed at night and I haven't used that whole tank down to the very last drop, I've wasted something that God has given me." And you know what happens? The next morning I wake up and this miracle happens, that God has refilled the tank again. And I go about it all over again to use up all that gas. And I'm like, I mean, it's an amazing thought that we've been given this gift. And
you seem to have that gift, Rick, that he's passed down, setting
well, I
light.
think it's all of us. It's in our DNA. And Mr. Rappaport certainly had a
So you
strong
think that it's something like Rappaport
double helix.
but you think it's something that we all can get, that like he passed it on to you. You obviously have it. Is that something?
Well, I used to tease Mr. Rappaport because, you know, there's DNA and there's RNA. And I always told him, well, you know, the RNA, the Rappaport nucleic acid is what I've got. But it is something we have a responsibility to pass that on, because you know what? That was given to him. If you think about it, Eric, Mr. Rappaport came from a very strong line of people. You know, all throughout Rappaport's life, if you go back to the beginning of time, and he comes from a very ancient people, but think about this. Mr. Rappaport no one in his family, all the way back through history, never died of a childhood disease. Not one of his relatives was ever killed in a war. In fact, none of them were even eaten by a dinosaur before they had a child. So think about that from the beginning of time, because if one of those things had ever happened to him, Mr. Rappaport wouldn't be here. And if you think about it, so what Mr. Rappaport represents to us is all those generations and generations and generations of strong people. Guess what? You and I both have that same history within us. Because if our relative had been eaten by a dinosaur, died in a childhood disease, or died in a war, you and I wouldn't be here. So we've got that same deal.
I love it.
And it's just important that we share it.
I love it. Is there anything else, Rick, that you can think to share with everyone as we honor his legacy and his passing? As we both know, he was a very rare person. Anything else that you would share with everybody about his life, or about how he affected you and how you'd like to see other people be? Because you had the privilege of being with him and spending time with him. A lot of people have asked me, as I'm sure they do, wow, you're so lucky, Rick, you got to spend this time with an icon like that. I mean, what would you share if he was here?
If you said luck around Bernard, he'd said, no, Rick, you're blessed, because Lady Luck was a false pagan god, and nothing about Bernard Rappaport was false.
Wow.
It was really true.
Yes.
But I just think Mr. Rappaport, I think one of the really hallmarks of him is family, and that forgiving your family. And, you know, we have this thing called the Platinum Rule, that really Mr. Rappaport is the one that practiced that and really planted that seed within me for the Platinum Rule. And so if I leave you with this, it was just simply do more for others than they do for you. Do more for others than they do for you. And if you practice that, a lot of people think, well, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But, a lot of times you think, well, I'm not going to do anything for you. You don't have to do anything for me. But Rappaport lived his whole life by the platinum rule, doing more for others than they did for him. And, when you do that, some people call it paying it forward, but it's not. It's action right now of doing more for others than they do for him. He did that to every person he encountered. Wow. But what I learned from Rappaport, if you ever had a relative like you've been a little mad at, or you're worried about going home at Thanksgiving and stuff, Bernard would just overcome all those things with those people and just decide, I'm going to do more for that relative that's a little irritating than they did for me this year. And so really, I just implore everyone, practice that platinum rule that he gave us. And it will change your life, and it'll change everybody around. Tell everybody about it. Tell everybody about Bernard Rappaport. And if you can't remember him, just remember you got that gas tank. Fill it up.
There you have it, gang. Is this not the most awesome locker room message? It was for me. For all of you watching, I'm glad you were here. Rick, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
If you've enjoyed and feel that the Daily Locker Room has served as an inspiration in your life, why not take this moment and do the same for a friend by sending them the daily message?